the recording didn't come out. It's great. So just want to make sure. All righty. All right. And just pulling up my notes, and we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, everyone. I am sure you all are enjoying the conference, and it has been amazing and high energy. So, without further ado, we're going to get right into it. We have a very special guest today. We have Miss Jessica Woods of NABIP. Hello, hello. And we are discussing the future of Medicare agents. We have all seen the headlines about, how they're taking our commissions or just some of the inconsistencies of what a Medicare agent does versus like the actual reality. And I felt there was no other person to speak on this but Jessica, the CEO of NABIP. I've got a chance to meet her at least twice now on two different occasions. I went to CapCon earlier this year, and we also saw each other at Medicarians.
That's right.
Yes, as well. And let me tell y'all, she is a powerhouse. Okay, she is definitely giving CMS what they are asking for. Okay, so Jessica, welcome.
Thank you so much. This is an honor, and I'm really glad that you and I are in relationship now. When I met you at CapCon, I knew there was something different about you, and a light that definitely illuminates when you walk in the room, a presence that is necessary in the rooms that we're in. So, very, very honored and excited to be here with you at your conference.
Thank you so much. So, and I mean, of course, you the same way, Jessica. I mean, it goes both ways. It goes both ways, and they're going to hear it as you speak because she's no joke. Okay, and one thing I can say is this: Jessica, she's a woman, and everybody respects her. Everybody respects her. And I will tell you too, the numbers are showing it as well because NABIP is growing by leaps and bounds. So to start this off, Jessica, for people who do not know, what is NABIP?
NABIP, so some of you may have heard of NAHU if you haven't heard of NABIP. So we are NABIP as of 3 years that we changed our name, our brand to be more targeted about who we represent. But for many years, many decades, we were known as NAHU, which is National Association of Healthcare Underwriters. And NABIP, formerly NAHU, is National Association of Benefits and Insurance Professionals. So we're the leading voice for advocating for independent agents and brokers in our country. That is who we are. We are your agency, your advocacy group, your entity in the world to ensure that your profession not only exists, but is able to thrive and have the impact that is necessary and required of us. And I liken it unto oftentimes a lawyer will join a bar association. They don't question it. A doctor will join the medical association. A hospital will join the American Hospital Association. We're that equivalent in our profession. So that is who NABIP is. We represent thousands of licensed agents and brokers nationwide, inclusive of employer-sponsored coverage, ACA marketplace, Medicare, of course. And the way I describe it is we're that blanket of coverage across the country. There's very few lives essentially that we do not touch, right? Like most people who access our financing or delivery system in our country is touched by an agent. We know 1 in 3 Medicare beneficiaries are assisted by an agent. 80% of the folks in marketplace, ACA marketplace, was assisted or helped by an agent. Over 160 million lives covered by employer-sponsored care. The majority of them were assisted through those employers by an agent, by a broker, by a consultant. And so that's who we are. We're a federation. We're based in Washington, D.C., and we have chapters all over the country. So we have over 150 chapters. Pretty much most states have a chapter. And within each state, There are multiple chapters that represent the communities, both metropolitan areas to the most rural communities are represented or covered by a NABIP chapter, most likely. And so we're really proud of that because we bring that national necessary prowess and proximity to Washington, D.C. and lawmakers and legislation and regulation, but we also are very clear that healthcare is local, and having our distributed model allows us to be in our local community representing the communities that we serve. So yes, that's who NABIP is. I'm excited about sharing a bit more about what we do as we move forward.
Absolutely. So one last question. I wanted to know, how many members in total does NABIP have?
So we represent over 100,000 agents.
Wow.
What we have, our paying members are about 12,000 to 13,000. So within that, there's groups, of course, as you know, FMOs who represent even more lives. So we have individual membership, we have agency dues model membership where your agency can join, or a corporate membership that represents many lives. So through that, we represent a total of over 100,000 agents.
Okay, wonderful. And we will get to how much it costs to join NABIP just in a moment, just to let you all know, I am a member. I'm a paying member of NABIP. Every month it comes out for probably at least the past 3 years. And it's pretty small to me, very affordable to membership for all that you get. So question, Jessica, what I wanted to talk about here was just, what do you think is the disconnect between the government perception and reality?
That is honestly, so I've been in this role, it'll be 2 years in September as a CEO.
Okay.
I've taken over from a long-term, the CEO was here for over 2 decades and really worked closely in Washington, D.C. To dismantle the myths and the disconnect. And we're still doing that today. I can say the guarantee is that's a constant. And largely because there is now more than ever, we've had record number of retirements over the last 2 years, 2 Congresses, a whole new, administration that happens every so many years. So there's lots of change and shifting of those who are on the committees that we primarily work closely with, and we constantly have to educate. But I would say the biggest disconnect is the belief that brokers are unnecessary middlemen. And there are voices, other organizations that share that, right? And if they're louder, or if they happen to have a good story to go with it, then they get the attention. And then we have to come and make sure that it's very clear what our role is. But this middleman theory has been a really big one, and we've been lumped in with a variety of different entities in our healthcare ecosystem. They consider PBMs middlemen. They consider, sometimes navigators or ship, counselors, part of that navigation more essential than a broker or agent. And so we come in with the reality of things, that we are trusted navigators, not middlemen that are just there to exist. We help navigate millions of lives, Americans, through our very complex healthcare delivery system. We make sure that policymakers understand that they may lack the visibility into our day-to-day. So that's why storytelling is so critical for us. As I mentioned, when you can make it personal, when I said that 1 in 3 Medicare beneficiaries are touched by an agent, and you make it personal and share that story, they can see their grandparent or themselves, that someone they love in their family that was helped by an agent, that knew that if they didn't help them get help outside of what they knew, they wouldn't be able to get the medications that they needed to survive or have a quality of life. But I do think that is really the biggest disconnect, is not really how we are positioned in our healthcare ecosystem and financing system isn't always the most visible.
Yes.
Right? We're behind health plans. If you're with the employer, your layers behind the carrier and the employer. When it's Medicare, it's personal, right? It's not like we're on a billboard with the consumer sharing that experience. It's a very personal, across the kitchen table or intimate setting call or in-person encounter, and that's not seen. And that's one of the biggest things that I've noticed and that we've been intentional about ensuring is that we're no longer invisible.
Okay, I love that. I love that. I recently did a TED Talk, and on my TED Talk, it was titled 71 Sexy and Fulfilled. That's
Okay, I love it.
yes,
I
yes.
think I saw that online.
Yes, I know, right? But on it, I talked about what I felt about aging, and I said one word came to mind when I thought about aging, and that was invisible. So for you to say us as brokers are invisible, that really strikes a chord with me.
Yeah.
What I want to ask you is this. So everyone knows, right? Because again, they would just think NABIP, okay, it's association, it's a group of people. Let's talk about what you all are actually doing day to
Yes.
day to make a change because you all have people working on our behalf in
Yes.
Washington. And
We
so
do.
let's talk about that.
I'm so glad you asked my question. We are not just a good time, right? Or like, here's some new information. We are literally on the ground in DC and, like I said, distributed throughout the country. We have a state director who's helping with state issues, whether it's new policies and bills that oftentimes we make sure don't get introduced. And that's something that you don't get a chance to see, right? It's great to be able to
Hmm.
celebrate a win of a bill that we introduced and advocated for, and it passes, and we can celebrate that very publicly. But there's more often than not, we're actually preventing something from happening that you get the opportunity of never having to see, because it would have been detrimental to you and or your customers.
Can you
Uh,
elaborate? Can you elaborate on that? Like, what's something that we never got to see?
well, one example is, and not necessarily in Medicare indirectly impacts us, but a single payer healthcare system,
Mhm.
and on the employer side, right? In California, New York State, we're fighting that right now. We've been able to collectively, through our chapters, ensure that we don't have a single payer system. And that's something we're very proud of being able to ensure didn't happen, that we don't have to fight. That because with that system eliminates the role of the agent. And I say oftentimes that shift is a guarantee. Shift happens in healthcare. That's a guarantee for sure. And if we pay attention to what's happening, whether it's your market or not, there's going to be a trend or a wave if it gets momentum. And that's the same with the Medicare side. I've been telling the employer consultants and brokers we have at NABIP, ACA marketplaces, this is coming to a community or a policy near you if we don't all band together to help the Medicare agent right now on what we're fighting today in Washington, D.C. So some of the things we're actively combating is both on the marketplace side and the policy side. From a marketplace side, it's largely due to the commission compensation strategies that have been being threatened, whether or not how much an agent will get paid, how they get paid, and whether or not a plan decides to pay this year, PDP, for example, how much notice that an agent will get before determining that. Will the book of business that you have worked really hard to ensure that is protected and has access that they need all of a sudden be stripped away from you? Those are some of the things that we actively fight day to day.
Sure. So let's talk about that. And one of the things that I wanted to add too, that I was hoping that you mentioned, is that you all actually have lobbyists
We do.
that work in Washington on our behalf.
Yes.
So lobbyists are people who are at Capitol Hill daily on behalf of NABIP members that we fund,
Yes.
right? So that's part of where our dues go.
100%. So our job is to ensure you're not just protected, but positioned for influence. And that's what our lobbying team makes sure happens every single day. In addition to our lobbyists, we have lobbying consultants outside of our team. So on my staff, I have lobbyists directly working with us from the team. And then we have a support structure with external lobbying consultants to give us a little bit more capacity to ensure that nothing is uncovered, right? Like we're covering every issue. And then we also have, like I said, a state structure where we're helping the local issues that are happening within our states. So, for example, when a commission issue happens and it's a local health plan that makes that decision, that structure is very important, right? Because they're visible in their community. We can set up meetings with the leadership of those entities and address it from a private perspective, and while we're at the same time working with regulators in DC and legislators in DC to address it from that perspective to get the protections that we need. So 365 days of the year, we have government relations work, whether it's through policy writing, responding to the rules that come out or being proposed. We're right there. We're walking the halls of Congress, which you had the chance to experience at CapCon.
Yes, yes.
Phenomenal experience. We host a Capitol conference every February, the end of February every year. This year we had over 700 agents show up.
It wasn't that the largest?
This was the largest in probably over a decade.
Yes, definitely. CapCon, it was important that I came this year. Shout out to Hethel out of Southwest Virginia. She was like, I had to go there because I kind of at first just kind of passed it off. And plus, it's also during OEP as well, right? Mm-hmm. So I was just like, I'll just work. She's like, no, Melissa, you have to go. I'm so happy I did go because I really got to see NABIP in action. So I've been to, your national conference before when you all had it in Austin. It's a wonderful time. But going to CapCon, I'm going to tell you all, agents, it's a work trip. It is a real work trip. This is not one of these conferences where you're going to go and, have all the champagne and all the parties. It's a little bit of that, but it is all about, I think it's 3 days. The first 2 days, everyone is prepping you to go to Capitol Hill. You're being prepped, you're giving talking points, you're hearing different experts come on to kind of get caught up on what's going on in the industry. All right. And then, the last 2 days, you're going on Capitol Hill, you're walking the Hall of Congress, walking the Senate. All right. You're seeing all the protesters and you're knocking on doors and you're talking to, if not the representative self, definitely their staff. All right. Which I will say at first it sounds kind of intimidating going to CapCon or going to Congress, but it is very like an open door. All right. It's really almost a real security threat. Because I am from DC. Okay. So being from DC, I always say everybody has a political opinion in DC, even the janitors, everybody has a political opinion. But going there to go to Capitol Hill, you see a whole different side.
Yeah.
Whole different side, whole different perspective. And, it was just, it's an open door. It is really an open door. And they are very well versed in what we are doing. So, and I think that also too is, I forgot the right word for it, but there is someone in each representative's office specialized in healthcare. So they know us, they know about us, right? They can have intelligent conversations with us. But back to CapCon,
I'm glad you mentioned that. I do want to interject a little bit. They know us because of what I just spoke about. We're consistent. We're present. We're there. And as we're there in force every year at that time of year, hundreds of us.
We're swarming them.
We're swarming them. Yes. we are very clear that we are present and we are a force to be reckoned with. But we're here to align with them to protect their constituents who are our clients.
Yes.
That's the message that's really clear. It needs to be clear, that we ensure is clear. Oftentimes we go talking about what's important to us, right? Our livelihood, your livelihoods have been at risk. There's no question about that. And that's not a small thing. However, there's a strategy in DC on the Hill that you have to have. And if we go in talking about what's in it for us, those meetings get shorter and shorter. But as you could imagine, what you experienced, Melissa, you saw those talking points leading with the consumer impact. Without us, this is what happens. With us, this is what happens. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I will say that too, in those meetings that we had leading up to it, the theme was one voice. That was the strategy. One voice. NABIP speaks on one voice. That's why we all have those talking points. And also, Jessica, back to what you were saying, I was surprised to see that it wasn't just about the commissions and how we're important as brokers, right? It wasn't just about that we were lobbying for. We were actually lobbying too to extend the ACA credits for people.
That's right.
We are there lobbying on behalf of the consumer too, not just our pockets. And like you said, if it was just about our pockets, they would tune us out, and the meetings would get shorter and shorter. So we were definitely doing a lot of great work in there.
We really were. Thank you for being there. Thank you for what you did. Yeah, everyone needs to know that you actually matter. Like your individual self, you matter. You being present matters. You being engaged matters. Your voice matters, and that's a priority for us. I want you to know that. Like, you coming isn't just in vain. You're you're bringing stories with you. You're bringing lives with you, that are invisible, that can't be seen in that moment, that you carry with you, right? That responsibility, and those have a big impact. People
It
do
does.
hear you.
It does. Thank you so much. Yes. And so those of you all who are watching this right now, right, I want you all to know that, because when we go to these things, even if it's 700 of us, if no one comes from Little Rock, Arkansas to speak to that representative, it doesn't matter, because they want to speak to people from their hometowns who are their constituents, who's voting for them, right? So that is why it's so important that everyone gets involved. So when we talk about, I want to talk about commission cutting just a little bit, and then I have one last question.
Okay.
Commission cutting is a big deal, as you know, right? What, first of all, I want to know, when it happens, when they're making the decisions, are you all involved in any way? Like, are you all at the table? Are you all getting any inside information that this is coming down the pipeline, right? And how do we combat that? Because there has to be something, you know what I mean, that we could do. Like, let's talk about that.
That is a whole conversation. Okay, so we
Because they do know you. I'm sorry, but they
they,
do know you. They
they
do
do
know
know
Nate.
us.
Mhm.
I can say that is 20 months ago, 22 months ago, no heads up at all. When, this time last year, when we started seeing announcements coming, we were very quick to respond. But when you're responding, you're still behind, right? Because we didn't
Mm.
have the heads up. So we were still reacting in our response, in our responsiveness. So yes, we were quicker than we've probably been in the past. We were more bold in our language
You
before
were. You were.
we would not even name a health plan. We would just say health carriers are doing this. And the reality is they're not all doing the same thing. Some were following suit, but they all didn't lead the effort. And so we were very, very clear, bold, strong in our messaging, unapologetic about the fact that we're not backing down, and we will continue to make it clear of our value and step up in the way we need to. So that we're still probably in reactive, not as proactive as I would like us to be, as we would all like us to be, because what you described is a very proactive opportunity when we're given not just a heads up, but we're talking about these policy changes. Why? Yeah, I know margins are tightened. There's no question. I guess a couple of years ago, 5.7% carriers had a 5.7% margin. Now it's like 2.7%. So their margins have tightened. And when you look at the healthcare dollar, which I don't have a visual here, and where the money goes, you have to follow the money and who's in which buckets. And about 18% of that dollar includes both carriers and agents. We're in this insurance bucket. We're in that same bucket together. These are for-profit entities, just like your businesses. So if you have your margin shrinking, you're going to want more of that 18%. That's why you're seeing business decisions, I believe, to minimize the cost share or the profit sharing more so in that bucket. Strategically, where we need to get, because these are short-term decisions, because of short-term challenges that will have a long-lasting impact and consequences. Some of those consequences can be fewer agents choosing to be in the Medicare space, which we know with the 1 in 3 beneficiaries relying on us, that will be detrimental to our communities, right? That's a long-term consequence to a short-term, profitability or margin issue or business, a marketplace issue.
And from what I understand, that it's cheaper to have for an insurance company to have a Medicare independent agent than to hire someone. So I don't understand.
I can't speak for the carriers. I can just speak from the trends and analysis in the marketplace that I understand. And I do understand that their profits are shrinking. A lot of it, they're blaming on the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, and some of the stipulations put in place. As you know, over time, carriers and PBMs have integrated, so we've integrated systems. So parts of their business are being directly addressed or attacked, depending on what you call it, which angle you're coming from, on how they do business, right? So from a business perspective, we're starting to see this, and this is why we can't just have only a legislative strategy to address these things. We have to also have a marketplace strategy. And in my opinion, that is rallying up the troops, like literally bringing on the army with us. That's all of you in this room, and that's everyone that you represent. And ensuring that your voices are very at front and center, that you're not just collateral damage or decisions are being made without your consideration, without understanding the long-term impact and consequences of fewer options in the marketplace, fewer choices for you to choose from, gaps in your care. Like, that's who our competitor is. And I think coming together with who have been long-term partners of ours. I mean, many carriers are members of NABIP.
Right.
They're not the ones making these decisions per se, those who are represented, but they are members of NABIP too. I want to ensure that we have an opportunity to have a long-term, proactive relationship where we can come up with strategies, understanding that 50% of costs are on hospitals. Why are we fighting over this 18% when we should be trying to come up with strategies to address that 49% of where costs are in our healthcare system? How do we actually address site of care, contract differently and better, have healthier relationships with hospitals, centers of influence, and how we get care, ACO models. Like, what is the next iteration of value-based care that we come with to address waste instead of trying to extract from the resources and advocates that are helping our community members every day?
Yes.
And so those are conversations I think we're hitting into. We've evolved over the last 23 months with our relationships, where we're getting a little bit more of a heads up, but it's not nearly enough. And so right now we're advocating with CMS. If you've paid attention, please go to the website and look up our recent press releases. But we're asking CMS to prohibit carriers from making major process or platform changes within a certain time frame of AEP and OEP. We're asking for them to enforce transparency around plan availability and submission access, protecting the agent's role as a trusted Medicare navigator. We recognize this isn't just about policy, and I know you keep hearing me say that, marketplace policy, but this is about protecting the well-being of Americans. And when you threaten that through these short-term decision-making, you're threatening the existence of not only our healthcare ecosystem, but the well-being of those that we protect and serve as agents, as carriers. And so this doesn't just hurt agents, it's hurting consumers. And that's the message we have to continuously get out there. So if you've never heard about brokers making a difference, that is one way we're doing that.
Okay, I love that. I love that. Like you said, it is about well-being, right?
Yeah.
Our clients' well-being, absolutely,
Right.
because healthcare is, 99.99% of that. So last thing, because I know your time is short and I appreciate it. I wanted to know, like, how can people get involved? How much does it cost to join NABIP as an individual, right? Now that we've established the value,
Yes.
tell the people how much is it to get involved and, some of the big things you all have coming up, because I know we have a big convention in Miami. Okay,
Me
that's coming. It's
too.
going to be a lot of fun. All right,
So
y'all.
excited.
That's the fun part. Okay, CapCon is work, but the convention is a whole totally different thing. And Mark Cuban is going to be there this year. So I love that. Okay, so let's talk. How much?
Okay, let's talk about it. Well, as far as average dues, and they can vary depending on which market you're in based on your state dues. But average dues are about $500 a year, which can be paid monthly. And they can
Yes.
be broken up into 12 months, so you do not have to pay that all up front. Oftentimes at like Medicarians or some of our more regional conferences, we may be able to offer, they may offer a promo, which is like a $50 off opportunity when you first start off of your first year dues. But the average is about that. I think I would say probably about $378. Don't ask me how we came up with these numbers, 378. But most members pay 378 to national, so that's our office in DC. With everything we talked about today, the lobbying, even putting on CapCon and convention, all of that, the communications that you get. We have a Washington update every Friday. We have a state update. We have weekly newsletters that we share. So all the communications, and about $80 will go to your state, and $40 will go to your local chapter. So that's kind of how the dollars are built out of
Distributed, and you don't
national,
have
state,
to
and
pay
local.
each of them. And just so you all understand, you don't have to pay each of them separately. This is the monthly
Yeah.
fee, which will range from.
We divide it. We do all the math for you behind the scenes, but we do like to be transparent of, you join your local chapter. This is what the local gets. This is what the state will get, and national. But we do all the math. It's one fee for you. You don't have to worry about that. Thank you for making that clear, Melissa.
Yes, absolutely. Which is about $45 a month. Okay.
Mhm.
So just so you all know, because I want you all to join, because this is so important. So many people don't know how to get involved, or they just kind of sit in the sidelines. And I'm just definitely not one to be a victim of capitalism or circumstance. So that's why I got involved. And of course, you talked about, the conference that you all are having, CapCon that you are having, and your local chapters, they have meetings and they are looking for good people who want to do something, who want to be involved.
100%. Thank you for that. It is so critical. Yes, join. That's the first step. Join NABIP. If you want to protect your future, the future of this profession, being a part of this collective voice. Before we got on, we were talking a bit about community. This is a community. When we say NABIP family, that is a real thing. And I honestly, it was lingo to me when I first came on as the CEO. But I've been around associations for the bulk of my career. I'm telling you, the competitive advantage is the connectivity that you get out of this collective voice together. Your local members, your state members, and then coming together nationally for our conferences. That voice is non-negotiable. So please definitely get involved there. Beyond membership, though, we need your engagement. And of course, that's coming to Capitol Conference and participating, walking the halls, putting in the work, as Melissa said. But one of the most powerful tools we've launched is Brokers Making a Difference, that campaign. We have over 12,000 stories shared through this survey that we launched just several months before Capitol Conference. And that story is directly from agents, Medicare agents. We started with Medicare because that's the most pressing, most at risk part of our system right now, and of our membership. So we started with Medicare agents, but now we have an ACA. If you're diversified and you also touch the ACA marketplace, we have an ACA survey as well. But those stories we took with us to Capitol Conference. They were in our packets. And as Melissa said, they want to hear from their constituents, those in their districts that vote for them. We brought those voices with us to Capitol Conference with quotes on how an agent supports them and counsels them and helps them navigate very difficult circumstances. And honestly, told stories about being between life or death at times because of access if an agent didn't help them, support them. So please participate in the Brokers Making a Difference. If you aren't able to join right away, which I hope you do, that Brokers Making a Difference is available to you, not even without being a member. So please share your stories, your clients, share it with your clients, and ask them to share their stories, because we need both the brokers' voices, but we also need our customers' voices. So, Melissa, were you going to say something?
Yes, I wanted to know if they wanted to submit a story, and just to let you all know, when I did go to CapCon, I saw these stories everywhere. Okay, like it's like a line of stories everywhere, and NABIP actually invites senators and congressmen into the conference, and so they see these stories. And yes, they do. So how can we submit a story to Brokers Making a Difference, whether you're a member or not?
I
Should
will
they?
make sure you have the link. It is also on our website.
Hmm,
Should be prominent,
yes.
easy to access if you're interested. But I'll make sure, Melissa, you have a direct link that you can share with the audience here, and that they can get directly to it. Again, it's Medicare right now. I'll send you both Medicare and ACA surveys, and then we'll be rolling out an employer survey for any of you who also touch group, probably in Q4.
Okay.
So that's how you'll be able to access them. They're on our website, but we'll also make sure that you get them directly.
Absolutely. I will go ahead and I will drop it in the chat, the link. And also in the follow up of this conference, I'll make sure I include that link as well. So you all can submit the stories, because you never know who it's going to touch. So listen, Jessica Brooks Woods, thank you so very, very much for your time. You all who are watching, make sure y'all join NABIP and tell them Melissa D. Hall sent you. And if you all do see Jessica, she is so personable. Okay. She's very personable, very warm. So make sure y'all tell her hello. Okay. Make sure y'all tell her hello and go up to her. Very approachable. And we just thank you for the great information. Thank you to NABIP for the amazing work that you all are doing and putting those boots on the ground. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you again. God bless you.
Thank you.